welcome back to Girly Tales. In this section of Girly Tales, we will be talking about field creation. Now, how do we navigate to the fields and what are the fields first of all? So, let's first understand how we go to that page. Now, once we are on our screen, we have to actually navigate towards the setup area. So by now we know that if we click on this cogwheel icon, we can find here the setup, and once we click on the setup, we are good to move forward, and this takes us to our home page. Now once we are on home page, you can find here the object manager, and this object manager is having all the different objects which are available in our system. This can be our custom object, this can be a standard object, this can be any other object. So all our objects are listed over here. Now if you see any standard object, let's say for example account, if I go over here, I can find my account manager, and I can see here there is a field and relationship. Now if I go to the fields and relationships, what we can see is that there are different fields that are available with different field names and the data types. There is something which is called controlling field, and there is something which is called indexed. We'll be talking about all these different columns, but let's take it one after another. Now what we first need to understand is that the field can be a standard field or it can be a custom field. But how would I know whether it is a standard field or is that a custom field? And what is standard and custom, by the way? So standard is nothing but something which is available by default within the system. So for example, if this is the field and it is available by default and it was created by Salesforce itself and you never created it, but it is still present, it is nothing but a standard field. Now if you see here is this account name, here is this field name called name. Now what we need to understand is this field name, this field is nothing but the developer name. So as I mentioned in my earlier sessions as well, developer name is something which is an API name and is used by developers in their code. So field names is nothing but all your API names which are going to be used in your code somewhere or within certain configurations wherever it is needed. And then we have the data type. Data type is nothing but what kind of data this particular field is going to hold. So that is a data type. Now once we are here, you can see there are different types of data types. Moreover, if you notice here the fields are simple, but if you notice this one here, it is __C. Now what is meant by that? So what we need to understand by now is that anything which is custom means anything created by users like you and me. If we have created a custom field or any kind of custom thing, it's always going to be appended by __C within the API name. So this means that this active field, this was actually a custom field, right? So we do have this as an example readily created and available so that we could understand. Now another important fact to be looked at is that any field which is a standard field cannot be deleted. If you see, we cannot delete it. However, if it is a custom field, we can actually delete this one. So that's a major difference if you see. Now, if I have to create something, can I do that? Or so if we can do it, how can I do it? So here you can see new button. We click on new. So we are going to create a new field on account. If you can see, there are like different data types. What we'll do is we'll talk about the different data types in our next series, but for now what we will do is we'll pick up a simple one to understand. Let's say for example text. I want to put a text here, and this text mentions something related to what can be. Okay, let's say account secondary contact. Okay, so this is my field secondary contact. Let's add it, and by default any text field is maximum, it can hold up to 255 alphanumeric characters. Now if I do that, I can add here 255. We must add description as I have mentioned earlier as well. So I can mention here that this field is to hold or maybe capture information about accounts secondary contact. So once we are here, we can add any help text if needed. A help text, now what is this help text? Help text is kind of a hover on icon. So if you hover over the help text, it gives us some additional information about the field. It is available in UI and you can make use of it to fill in some information. So you can mention here that this field, so you can add your secondary contact for emergency contact. So I'm just adding something so that we can show you on the front end how it looks like. So once we have done so, I can mark this field as required. Now required means mandatory. We must always fill this. I can also make it unique. And in case of unique, it will never ever hold any duplicate value. I can make it case sensitive or insensitive. I can also have an external ID. Now what is this external ID? External ID is a field that is used whenever we are importing the data from any external source. External IDs are kind of unique identifiers which are brought in from external systems. We will be talking in detail about external IDs in our upcoming sessions, but for now, let us understand this way. Now, auto add to the custom report type. Do we really want to add it as a custom report type? Once we have added this, it will be available in our custom report types. Now, reports also have different report types to begin with. So we'll be talking about this also in our next session, but for now, let's add it. And then there is default value. Now, let's assume I want to populate some values always by default, which may or may not be case as per my business use case. So based on my business requirement, I can skip this value. Now, because this one is a secondary account holders contact that we are looking at, ideally we can skip it. So we can skip it for now. And as you can see, we can even make the fields accessible at the profile level. So by default, this is all visible because, I marked it as mandatory over in the previous window. If you remember, I marked it as required over here. So that is why it is visible to all. Now, if I go back and what is here, so there are different page layouts. So if I want to make this field available on different page layouts, I need to check it all over here. But by default, because this field was required, it is all checked. Once that is done, I can click on save. And we are done. Now, once this is done, I can look out in this for my field. And as I mentioned, any kind of field which is a custom field will always have its API name appended by __C. So it is done. So how can I view this? That can be the next question. And that is a good question, in fact. So what will we do is we'll go to the app launcher. And what we will do now is click over here and look out for Girly Tales. This is the app that we created in our previous session, if you remember, and we can navigate to the next screen. And since we created this field on the accounts object, we can go to the accounts object. We can look out for all accounts. I can pick up an account and I can see here there are different tabs. We'll go to the detail tab because detail tab is a field that holds all the information related to that particular record. Now, once I'm on the detail tab, I can scroll down and let me search for that field that we created. See, we've got this field, secondary contact. And you can see over here, which is nothing but the help text, if you remember. We just now have populated the help text, add your secondary contact for emergency contact. So we have added this. And if I want to populate something, like I may say, Paul is my emergency contact. So I can just add it as a name. And that should be good because that was a text field, if you remember. So we are good to go. Here is a secondary contact. I have page and we are good to go. So that's all from Girly Tales in this video. Have a great day.